Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new day one patch review where we saw one of the largest balance patches in Hearthstone history, affecting both standard and wild, Reno card reworks, and one undocumented buff that is absolute fire in Hearthstone. We're gonna go over everything, including my first impressions on the meta, as well as some really nasty things that just are not okay sent towards the devs I want to talk about briefly, and a full breakdown of all of Whizbang's new decks that have been updated. A bunch of them look a lot better, so we could go over exactly that. I'll link the tweets with all the updated decks from Imic, who's always doing great work. I'll link that down below if you want to see the specific. And as always, if you enjoy our content on the channel, if you like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like, it helps us out a lot as we're on the road to 82,000 subscribers. And friendly reminder, every single time there's a balance patch, make sure to go into your collection, type in refund, look for what cards are eligible to be disenchanted for full dust, check standard and wild this time in case you have the wild cards, and I always recommend fully disenchanting everything. You can craft it back later, but if it's something like a Zilliax or a Reno, you might want to hold on to it because, let's be real, those cards are busted. So yes, Mixtape, that's the card we're looking at here. You might note it actually got a stealth buff for Rogue, as before, it never had a spell school tag, and now it is fire. The Mixtape is absolute fire. This was actually included in a patch note in the April Fool's patch note. Said, as they like to do, they throw in some of these changes later, and you might be saying, well, Zeddy, it doesn't really matter. It's just a fire tag. No, it's a big deal. It's huge, because not only is it a fire spell, you can now generate this a pyrotechnician, getting mixtapes in whatever class you want, but more importantly, it absolutely breaks the wild meta in multiple ways. First, you can now get more card draw off your multicaster, because we all know Rogue struggles immensely with card draw in wild. Secret Passage, definitely not a card, but more importantly, and most scary, they can now unfreeze Frozen Mammoth for 1 mana or with a prep 0. Pretty busted stuff. Overall, obviously very minor, more of a flavor thing, but I just thought it was really funny, very flavorful, and a nice little change. But more importantly, the change has gone live with any Highlander card. Now reads, if your deck started with no duplicates, your Kurtrus, your Rheastraza, your Thelgerin, your Spirit of the Badlands, your Elise Badlands Savior, Dr. Holiday, Deep Miner Brand, we'll talk about him a little bit later, and of course a Marut Stonebinder and Reno Lone Ranger. Dust only being offered to Reno because he was the main card that was used in those super heavy, cycle heavy decks, and he did get bumped to 9 mana, which feels reasonable. It's a very powerful card. I didn't feel too bad playing at 9, although one game it cost me, and that's fine. I think that's okay. It's a very powerful effect. If we're looking at the meta itself, it's way too early to evaluate, especially a patch of this size. Numbers are going to be crazy. Same with wild, right? Quest Mage getting hit's a pretty big deal. It's going to go down considerably. Druid got hit, Rogue. But overall, I took a look at Donkey.top, which always has the earliest numbers. If we're looking at Legend, it's basically what I would expect. The aggro deck doing it really well early. Odin Warrior, or not Odin Warrior, Highlander Warrior did stand out. You're gonna have a gameplay video later today where we played Reno Shaman. This felt pretty good, felt pretty solid. He's half Brand Warrior, and that deck, it's gonna be tough to beat. It really is. And then people are trying out Drilling Rogue. If we look at Diamond through Legend, again, super early. It's been less than a day. I'll have deck recommendations likely tomorrow, and probably a follow-up on that, because it's gonna change a lot because there's so many pieces moving and being buffed. It's hard to figure out a day or two. But again, Diamond through Legend, you're seeing a theme here of Zoo Hunter, Reno Warrior, Zoo Hunter, and it does, to me, I face this on ladder, it's the meta has slowed down enough again that the Demon Hunter deck, the Window Shopper deck, might be good enough again, right? Everything got hit. A lot of Reno Warrior. We got a Whizbang deck up here. How about that? We'll talk about that in a second, although this one wasn't changed, which is funny. Plague Deathlight seems to be, I saw plenty of Plague and Rainbow DK, even though it doesn't auto counter the Reno decks. I think it'll be playable. And Spell Mage, we got one list here nearing 50%. I'm not sold on Spell Mage, and oh god, I really hope that this Nature Shaman dies off, because yeah, that was my biggest concern going into this. Why not just murder that deck? So I will leave off with just general impressions. Hearthstone felt a lot better today. It felt like the board mattered a lot more, but it does feel like we're not there yet. I feel like it's going to have some growing pains. They said in those patch notes, this is going to be a process. You know, we're going to evaluate and we can, try and bring agency back to the game. And I did want to say, this was kind of like what I concluded after my stream. It feels amazing to be able to play with my Reno and not have my deck completely negated by a third of the meta, which is what the card should do. It's not abused by the cycle decks. I faced an Odin Warrior too. He couldn't just Reno in the late game. He had to try and clear my board other ways. They failed. They died. It felt pretty good. But the only issue I'm having is Bran, which to me is the wrong style of Highlander card. Passive effect you cannot interact with in any way once it's played. I did rat one and then I still lost because Real Warrior's pretty good. That basically says win the game. And I like this comment here saying, I can't believe that anyone thought this Bran was a good idea after we had a year of old Bran in core and we were all begging for him to be removed. Very true. Every card nerfed because of Highlander Warrior is a reminder of how bad this card's design is. And yeah, double battle cries. It breaks the game. It just seen with Bran, Corrupt the Waters back in the day in Quest Shaman was pretty frustrating. Never got nerfed, but it was pretty frustrating. And it just, to me, this is the one that stands out. All the other duplicate cards, like they don't win the game on the spot. Even Reno, which is good as he is, he's just a board clear that does restrict the board space the next turn, but he doesn't win the game, right? A lot of decks can definitely beat a Reno board clear. And you look at all these other cards, you can Viper, the weapon, and plus I've lost when I've used every durability of the weapon. Elise is just a stat bomb. Spear of the Badlands, just a bunch of value. Feldoran's a tempo swing for Hunter. Ria Straza is infinite value. This is like the closest one where it does feel pretty bad, but at least there is counterplay, I guess, with Rat and Reno himself, which can get rid of the nest as well. And then Kurtrus, which is disruption in itself. It's a one-time thing. I just feel like Bran is just wrong. I've not been a fan of his style, and I wish that it got changed alongside a lot of this stuff, because even with the change, like Boom Boss is still really good, even though it shuffles into your opponent's deck. It's still an absurd card, right? So, and that's not really a fun, engaging style of thing. So I will put that out as a criticism. Bran Warrior stood out to me as something that feels pretty rough, but overall, I do recommend playing the ladder if you get a chance, or if you're boycotting because of the weeklies. Again, I don't blame you because the weekly stuff is stupid. I'm hoping that gets fixed at some point, but overall, I'm optimistic about the ladder, but I do feel like there is work to be done. And then, I did want to mention this. Don't do this. This is stupid. Don't be like this. Aleko Gariko, the balanced lead on the team, said he received multiple threatening DMs about the time warp once per game change, and that was not on his bingo card. To be clear, I've received positive messages about the recent patch as well. I'm totally fine. I just thought it was odd. Of all the changes, people were the most upset about this. And as someone who has played, I kid you not, I guarantee you it's at least over 5,000 games of that deck. I played it since like the beginning of time. I watched Toasted Nevils play the OG one with like Antonitis. I played the Flamewaker, the Giants, the Parrots, the Orbs, the Romaths. That deck needs to not be like that. And because the card was always about one extra turn. That's what it was always about. The game just evolved where all of a sudden I could get multiple turns. That was never the initial design. So just back to where it's supposed to be. And that's fine, right? And it was just really unfun to face. It's just something that should exist. You could still play it. You could still take an extra turn, set up an infinite OTK. It's very doable. It's just, don't be like this. If you're going to be critical of something, be critical. Put it out there on Reddit, on Twitter, in a constructive way. Just don't threaten devs. It's so lame. So if I catch any of you guys threatening devs, I'm going to lose it, so don't do it. Anyways, lastly, full breakdown of the new Whizbang Decks. Again, this will be linked. This Twitter thread will be linked down below from Imic. But basically, they made a lot of the decks way better, like considerably better. Like you could take a look at Deathlight here. We'll go over like the rough changes that you could see, like Hallucination being added for not only some cheap value, but getting that nature spell in there because it's like all rainbow themed, which is really nice. You get Hipster for a bit more value. Top is new, the bottom is old. Get those primordial glyphs. Just a lot of better extra value cards in there. The same win con of just getting a big board, but overall, not bad. I don't think Whizbang's going to be super duper competitive, but it's going to be a lot better because these decks, like you take a look at Druids, particularly better as they added on top of like discovering all the stuff and getting the ramp, they added Eonar, they added Kuhn, Yogg, as well as UI. So you can ramp up and then play some big stuff and do some really good things. So that one looks really cool. We have Hunter, which is like the double legendary. Now you get like primes, a lot more primes to play in the early game. So you have a little bit more to do. You have to hypnotize a Maxitude to also give you infinite value. I guess it's 100 spells since you'll be a hunter. And the late game remains similar, but you don't have like the Sunwell. You have Infatize instead, which is way, way better. Sunwell just didn't make a lot of sense. And like Velorock, really nice. So that deck looks a lot more fun. Reno Paladin, which is all about like the League of Explorers, still doesn't get Reno Lone Ranger, which I'm like, why not? It's so good. You get Zeph now. Zeph in there is really going to be helpful to get that like board clear, whatever you want. You can copy it with Elise. So Zephyrus being added will help substantially, I would imagine. The Automaton Priest got more automatons. There's 9 of them now. Instead, I think they cut the Shattered Reflection. So overall, it's very similar, I think, but yes, more automatons for your automaton priest. Rogue gets a lot better early game cards as well. Just get pirates, you get like Patches the Pirate, and now you get Hook Tusk instead of the Goldbeard card. You get Hook Tusk, which got buffed recently, so that's a nice addition to the deck. Shaman, not only do they get like some new cards, cheaper Murlocs, they got rid of like the terrible Neptulon card, but they also updated, I'll show the picture. The quest now draws you cards, so you get extra cards right when you play your quest, which activates all 3 other quests. So again, a little bit better, not amazing. Warrior thankfully got rid of like Boob Scheme and added some like actual better cards like the Evil Recruiter to give you a 5/5, and overall a bit better tempo. You get the Wasps, which are really good with lackeys, and like Eric, and you get the Warlock card that makes your lackeys like 4/4s, I think, for the rest of the game. So a lot better cards in that regard. And yeah, those are the updated lists. Whizbang seems a lot better, probably a lot more competitive. So you've been not wanting to play because it loses pretty heavily, you might want to give it a second go. They got a lot of cool cards in there. And yeah, overall, day 1 patch, I had fun. I am worried about cards like Bran. I didn't really bring up Sif as a big problem because at least Sif is like in the late game. It's got a build to that big burst OTK. Oils now cost 1 mana, and it's way more susceptible to like Dirty Rat in particular. You can disrupt that deck, whereas Bran, it's 6 mana. They could coin it on 5, right? Like, it's really hard to reliably hit that style of thing. Anyways, we'll have a gameplay video later today. Stay tuned for that, and then we'll have deck recommendations tomorrow, and then we'll go from there. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying the patch. Let me know what you think about everything in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.